Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to talk about the commission split solution today, looking at taking stress out of commission split. Now, if you're in the financial services industry, you might have dealt with the following challenges as far as commission is concerned, where you might receive 40 or more statements on a monthly basis. They will all come from different product providers, all different formats, very difficult to sometimes understand. But what we're going to try and show you today is how easy it is to take the stress out of all of these files and bring them together. Okay, so the typical challenges that you will be experiencing is that there will be no control or the correctness of these files. They are almost impossible to consolidate, and it takes a lot of time and effort to get them into a single view, and then obviously from there take that and trying to split them becomes a very, very complex solution. So I'm moving on to just give you a bit of an introduction of how the commission system has been put together. And if we look at the commission and we're looking at it in a broader sense, you'll notice that we are dealing with it within a broader context of a total solution. Now, I'm going to talk today only about the commission part, which forms part of our full Insure suite and is the whole practice management solution. So let's get into the commission split. And some of the main features that we're going to talk about is that commission for this product calculates your commission on different levels, which means that I can split it in nth ways to multiple parties using certain formulas that you can set up within the commission. So there's a split to multiple parties at any level. Okay, we're using different split percentages based on time and transaction type. In short, all it means is that if my commission split changes from month to month, or I want to put up a scenario where I'm splitting at 60-40%, and in 3 months' time I'm going to change that to 50-50. That type of setup can be accommodated using a time-based split formula within the system. We split commission from 2 data sources, mainly Excel spreadsheets or CSV. Unfortunately, at this stage, CSV files cannot be directly imported into the system. One of the important features of the commission split system is that it obviously integrates our contact management module as well. And you'll see some of that in the demo that I'm going to give you. And then we want to export commission statements. Very important that we can export the data out of the system into different formats, can produce different commission statements, and automatically send this out to the recipients that are receiving this commission. And then we also provide an online capability for recipients to directly interact with the system and get those commission statements. Security is very important within any financial system or any commission system, so it's important then also to split the different roles that people within the organization fulfill in the whole commission administration process. And then the last part that we're going to look at is how do we verify that a certain person within the system, a broker, has a mandate to sell a product and therefore receive the commission on that product. Commission is focused on literally 4 main processes: import of data provided from different product providers, then bringing that into a consolidated view for us to understand, and from there to process that commission and then to redistribute the commission into the different recipients. To summarize then on the commission process in total, you'll see there's a few steps that is normally taken within any commission redistribution processes. First one is we want to import that commission statement data from the product providers. We will process the commission. This process means the actual splitting of that commission. Then there's an approval process that takes place to approve the actual splits. In total, we then approve also the commission statement, creating certain expense transactions that you'll see we'll set up within the product, and then generating those recipient statements. And these are the statements that we'll send out to your recipients. And they are also getting approved. And then the last step in the whole commission process is to then pay that commission. Okay, so I'm going to switch over now to the application and to work with, showing you how we set up commission recipients and then process certain commission statements. Okay, so I'm logged into the application as an admin user at the moment, and I've moved directly into the commission part of it. And you'll see we also have spoken about contact management, financials, and these utilities, which we are not going to go into today. So the first step in setting up your commission is to understand how commission will be distributed. Currently, within the solution at the moment, I've set up one broker house called Money Management. And just to go into Money Management record, you'll see that we've created all of the different contracts with the broker codes for this particular broker house. So Money Management Pty Limited has, in this case, a contract with Absa Investment Management going under the broker code of 2038. And then there's also Stanley Wealth, and a lot of different contracts set up that the broker house have with the product provider. Importantly to notice here is the date of when that is started, because that also controls how commission is split and from which date that commission will be split. I'm going to look at the management then in more detail. So now what I'm doing is I'm drilling down more into the broker house management, and I'm looking at different brokers. Now I'm going to look at Rolf Gerber as a broker, and you'll see we've set him up with a specific broker account codes, which is an internal code that can be used to link the actual person to third-party systems. Now, looking at Rolf himself, just going into the contact management zone, you'll see that we've set him up as a person record in the system with all normal details as far as, contact details, numbers, telephone numbers. We've set them up within a certain group, which is important. And I'm also given him a certain contact type. Now, this particular screen relates to the contact management process. So all of my advisors or recipients, as we term them within the solution, can be set up as individual person records in the system. And all communication happens then to them via either SMS, email, or any of the automated processes set up. So I'm back into my recipient now, and I'm just looking a little bit more into the detail that we need from a commission perspective. First of all, the date added, important to understand that it needs to be an active advisor or recipient from a specific date to receive any commission. He's linked to a particular broker house, and we've set up this person with a default percentage of 40%, which will change as we set them up individually with each of the product providers. Okay, he's active at the moment, and I've set this one up as a payroll client. He can also be set up as invoice, which is a third party. So once set up as payroll, the system will integrate to a payroll system and then push income information through to the payroll system. Looking at these tax details, we can specify tax number, tax directives, as well as when this tax directive is valid or not valid. Okay, and then going into competence register, we can deal with training that this person went to and at what time the training you received and in which of the class of businesses that's related to. Now, this information is important when we look further into the contracts that this person might have. So my example in this case, I'm going to do his ABSA contract. So this broker has got a contract with ABSA under that broker number, and you can see that he's allowed under this broker code to sell long-term insurance, securities and investments, as well as short-term insurance. That's really what this is set up. The default commission for any of the ABSA product services be on a 15% basis. So once we set up all of the contracts, we're now ready to go, and we can go into setting up what happens with this commission. Now I'm going to take you through an example of the different commission splits, as I mentioned earlier, which is a time-based commission split. Starting from the 1st of September, here we're going to go into the splits specifically. So starting at 1st September 2011, Ralph Gerber would have had a split of 20% and the 70% going to the broker house, with a further 10% being split out to a third party. Now, this particular split applied from the 1st of September, and it was applied on all type of transactions that we receive from the product providers. Going forward, you'll see that from the 1st of the 1st, 2013, the split suddenly changed. The third party is no longer available, and Ralph is now receiving the full 30%, with a 70% still going to the product provider. Okay, and we're going further. So there's some more complex splits happening a little bit further down. So as of the 1st of October in 2013, we are now breaking out into determining a little bit more. So what we're saying now is that if the commission received is less than 200 Rand, and that particular transaction is an index type transaction, then we will split on a 60-40. So now Ralph will receive 60% of that commission and the broker house only 40% if that amount is less than 200 Rand and it's of a type index. Some more examples on this. So here we've got another one that says if the amount is greater than 20,000, then we go on a 70-30 split. And you can continue breaking this up even more based on different criteria. And all of this criteria is completely changeable. So I can base it on date, I can base it on any of the fields that is coming in on the transaction data file. But this we set up for the advisor based on a specific product. So I can either set up, in this case, I've set up the APSA template as a generic one. It will apply to all of the products within that. And you can see I've even gone further on this particular recipient and added a lot more templates. But you can only work with one template if that's really what's needed. We can set up retention policies, which means is that for retention, I can retain certain data or certain amounts of out of the system and keep that, for a period of time. So in this particular case, as of an effective date of 2001, we would have retained any commission that was a new business commission more than 15,000. We will retain that within the system for a period of 12 months and pay it out on a monthly basis of 5,000 Rand. So we will initially pay out 5,000 and then it will pay out the rest in the next 3 months, up to a maximum of 12 if you want to. So it will split that rest of the 12,000 into equal amount of over that period of 12 months. So that's a retainment policies. Expenses, we can set up expenses, any of the advisors. So if you've got any expenses from an administrative perspective that you want to extract or you want to subtract from your commission for the broker, that can be done. So you can set up multiple expenses. In this example, we've used just an IT pre-support fee of 500 Rand a month. So we will deduct this fee from the commission on a monthly basis. Okay, they can also specify targets for the advisor to achieve. So there could be certain targets. Based on those targets, certain commission can happen. This example, and for this particular session today, we are not going to go into targets just because that's going to be a bit more time required for that. I can then also set up reserve accounts. So I can set up different accounts for my advisor. If you want to maintain certain amounts of commission over a period, and in this case, we want to reserve some of his commission for him on a monthly basis. So we're going to take 3% of his monthly commission. We're going to move that to a reserve account up to a maximum value of 150,000. This is typically used in a scenario where you need to reserve some money either for clawback or for bonus payments or anything like that. So there's an automatic reserve process that can be accommodated. I'm going to come back to transactions. I first just want to go to statements, just an access. How do we access certain statements that we send out to the individual recipients? This would be the level. We're going to get back to this now, just to understand that when a recipient accesses the system from an external from the web, you will can have access to individual areas within this to to get and to download his own statements. So I'm going to come back to that process a little bit later. So to just look at that again, what we've done at this stage now is we have gone through the process of looking at just setting up his commission so that we can process commission statements. So I'm going to move now into our commission process and look at how that affects the user. So where does this process start? So I'm going to my commission dashboard. Providing the commission dashboard is a place that will display for the commission administrator all different commissions received over a period of time, and you can see that the different statuses of commission statements approved, not approved, will be displayed within this dashboard. On the right hand side, we break the same information as now broken up into the product provider and in which state it is. So it provides the ability for an administrator to clearly see how much commission is in the pipeline, how much still has to be approved and processed. Okay, so I'm going to my commission statement now. So the first thing I want to do is import a commission statement, and we can do that from different areas. So I can go into here, click on commission statements, and just to show you how typically how commission statements look and how this whole process works, I'm going to open a commission statement. Okay, so this is typically an example of a commission statement, where you'll see the broker house codes, which we showed you earlier, that was set up as well as the different broker codes. The product providers, policy numbers, clients, benefit types, which tells us the transaction, and then we've got our commission type, as well as the VAT on that commission. So this is typically the type of format that we receive commission statements in, and they could be a bit more complex than just this one, and we might be looking at some of those examples as well. So how do we import those commission data? Okay, so first of all, I need to select my import map. Okay, and that's where we really mapping the product to the file. So there's a map that I'm choosing. I'm choosing my file from the files that I've downloaded or that was sent to me from my product provider. I can then select the product provider. So we need to tell the system which product provider to use. We need to tell the system against which contract we're going to execute this, the statement date, a reference, and then we can be processing this file. So I'm going to look at just some of the files that we've already processed, just to make things a bit quicker. So I'm going back to just looking how do we set up that broker maps for starters. Okay, so I'm back into the just the setup of the application, and we've looked at the coronation file. So here you'll see what we've done is we've created functionality where you can bring the data out of any file and bring it back into the system by utilizing what we call an import map. So here I've mapped column A, B, C, D to the different areas within the system. Right, so this needs to be set up for the system to understand and translate that data. Okay. Moving back to the import process, and I'm now into my imported statements, and you'll see here I've got currently filtered on open statements, meaning that these are my commission statements that we've recently have imported. Now, if I look at, for instance, that coronation file, you'll see that these are the transactions that was imported on that statement. All of them linked to the broker based on the broker code. It's linked to bringing through some of the data in the system as far as what we've picked up, and then they get imported and processed within the system. Okay. So I'm looking at, I'm going to look at one that provides us with some errors. So you'll see here, when it's red, it means that it didn't process 100%. Now I've got, on this particular statement, I've imported transactions, 182 of them. And you can see that this information is pulled directly in from the file that we originally had. There's no changes as far as information is concerned. We do minimum validation at this stage. We only want to bring the data in so that we can actually process information. Now, I've tried processing some of this data just to show what the end results of that is. So in this case, contract number, it says to me that it could not find a broker number for this particular product. So this record didn't exist for the broker. So there's no way that it actually can split this information. Okay, looking at this record, it will tell you that there's no contract specified. Now, processing commission has different levels of processing requirements. One of the things is you can get your advisor to log in directly, create the contract within the system, and then once the contract is available, the commission will be automatically processed. A second method for that is to once you create the contract, is to actually specify that the contract be created as the import happens. So in this case, we will be creating the contract. We will link it to the actual broker. We'll give it a specific status, and then we will also say that go and attach a split template to this contract based on the broker that is specified in the broker code. Okay, we will also be able to auto-create the product, auto-create the transaction type, and even merge data into a single commissions record. Let's look at one of the contracts that's already been created. Here I can see that I've got a contract, and it's linked to a specific broker, and it is the total amount that we've received with the VAT and total commission. Now, going through the whole process of splitting, and I want to just take through some of the other ones that we've already split. And let's look at one of these coronation ones, and you'll see that there's already been splits that's happened on this. So our typical process would be to calculate our fees to process our splits. So let's look at one of these, and you'll see that based on our previous template, we had an original amount that came in on 1468, and it was split three ways. So it was split to the broker on a 50%. In this case, it was split to a third party for the 10%, and then a 40% was split to the individual, to the broker house for this particular transaction. Okay, and in this whole statement, you'll see that the splits would have been processed in a similar fashion. Okay, so very easy to split my commission, getting my formula set up, split it to the different brokers, and then also be able to trace that all back to the different files from where the commission came in. So if I'm looking at this particular statement, I can see that this statement consisted out of two files that was imported for it. And looking at those files, I can actually trace back to the original file and seeing exactly where the transactions came from. Okay, so now we split. The splits are done, and we are ready to redistribute the commission to the different recipients. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my recipients, and I want to go back to our example, Ralph Gerber. Okay, so now I'm into the last part of it, which is really looking at the transactions. Now, when I'm looking at that particular transaction that we received on a contract, on a commission contract for Ralph, I can see that the portion of the transaction that came to him on a trailer fee was split, and you can see here that I can actually bring this completely back to and link it back to the actual contract from where this commission originated. Okay, so we need to all transactions within that has been split to Ralph need to be approved, and once they are approved using our approved process, it will be generated into commission statements. Now let's have a look at how those commission statements look and how they will be paid. Okay, so I'm going to go to Rolf's statements, and you'll see here I've processed a few statements for him. Let's have a look at this statement, for instance, which was generated for him quite a while back, and with all of the different ongoing transactions based on that. Now, I want to actually have a look at some of these commission statements. So here you can see a commission statement example. We have different examples of how they can be set up. So this particular one gives me the ability to break it down per product provider, per transaction type, as well as per category. And I can also then go into the individual areas of seeing exactly how they've been split onto the split percentages based on the different contracts as well. So you'll see it's broken down into the different product providers. So there's an Ames one for Momentum. So on this statement, this guy can see exactly how these the different types of commission that is received on a monthly basis. So these commissions used with automated processes, I will also be allowed to email these automated or these statements to the different product providers. Okay, so I can actually email him and directly send this commission statement to him, just using with pre-fixed or with merge fields, as well as selecting certain signatures to send the commission statements out. Okay, so by finishing this, I will be able to send out a commission statement electronically to all of my recipients. So yes, that's the quickest process or the process that we've gone through. Just to recap on that process again. So what I've shown you now is literally how easy it is to go through a commission import process, to split it, to approve both statements, generate the recipient statements, approve them. And so the last step we're going to go in now is how easily do we pay commission out to the individual recipients. Okay, so I'm back into my recipients. This time I'm going to the recipient statements, and we are going to look for any of the statements that's not paid. So in this case, I've got one statement that's not paid. So what I want to do is just pay this statement. So I'm going to use the approve process first. So I want to just approve this process. I want to approve them first. So once approved, I can now go and pay the recipient. So I'm going to go through payment, and you've got a choice of different payment methods. So in this example, I'm going to put him into a specific payment batch. So I'm adding this to the payment batch, and I'm also specifying the journal that we want to pay the transactions through. So he's now been added to that payment batch, which gives me ability to now, if we look at the statement payment batches, I can now close the batch and pay it through a specific payment gateway. Okay, so I'm going to just give you an example of that. So here I've got my statement payment process. I can either create my payment file directly from here, which in this case will use my pastel payment batch process. It will add these statements and the payment amounts onto that bank file, and then process for payment through the bank interface. Okay, so that's payment. The last bits I want to just touch on is what does it mean when I've got all of my data in one place? How can I see how my commission is put together? Now, from a reporting perspective, we have the abilities to generate what-if scenarios. So I'm going to just take you through a simple example of that, where we can look at For instance, commission distribution over products. And this is just an example of how you can use that information. So I'm going to use commission contract, and I want to bind the system to that. So I'm just going to maximize that so that we have that. Okay, and in this case, I want to look at my different commissions received per product. So I want to put in product. I want to put in the total commission received per product, and I want to bring in also my product provider. I'm going to bring in my product provider. I want to take the physical commission product out, and I want to split this over a certain period of time or over a specific status. So let's look at, for instance, using in this instance, maybe use the status. Okay, so I want to just look for status quickly. Okay, so I've pushed that over status, and I can see all my active contracts, my cancelled ones imported across that. So very easy to see how your commission, where your commission sits and where it comes from. And then I can take this information and very easily, export this to different formats if you want to work with it, at a later stage. It's also very easy to take that information and present it over a certain chart with abilities to change and to select the type of charts that I want to use. Okay, so I'm gonna just show you a few examples of different views that we've pulled and certain statuses that we've pulled out of the system at this stage, just to give it a better feel for what type of information you can get out of the system. Okay, so here we go, and we've done a chart that gives me across for a specific product provider, in this case Coronation. I can look at the values that we've received on a monthly basis, from this particular product. So that's a type of data that we can get. I'm going to look at another one as well, just to see which group is bringing in most information. And you can see here, I can look at each of my groups. If I've got a business which is situated over, in this case, examples here of ABC Coastal, Gauteng, the admin services, different groups, I can see which brings in different commission based on language in this instance. Okay, so that is commission split, setup of recipients, the templates, splitting of commission, anything. So thank you very much. I hope that you've a bit wiser as far as how easy it is to manage commission and split them. So for any further questions, please contact About IT to get some more information about the product. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope to talk to you soon. Thank you.